8 years ago, my family and I moved to this beautiful country. And this unexpected move came with a lot of struggles. But I personally struggled with one thing. It was making friends. And I didn't struggle with making friends because of who I was, because I spoke a different language and my English wasn't as strong as everybody else's who had grown up an entire life here. I was struggling by making friends because I had unrealistic expectations. A list that consisted of 3 points. The person has to be Latino, the person has to speak Spanish, and the person has to have the same cultural knowledge that I had of what it means to be of Latin heritage. Unfortunately, this isn't possible here in Canada, as a census done in 2016 stated that there's only 250,000 people that are of Latin American heritage in Canada. And I believe that the census hasn't been done again, but if it were to be done in 2022, I'd say that number would be from 350,000 to 400,000 Latin American people in Canada. Now, these are 400 people spread amongst 40 million people. It was impossible. It was impossible to find someone to relate to because that's all I wanted after that tough time. But once I realized that this was impossible, I introduced intercultural friendships into my life. And we've all experienced intercultural friendships. After all, we live in a multi-diverse nation, a nation that sees its diversity not as a problem, not as a creator of problems, but it sees its diversity as its strength. After putting away this mindset, I met Devin. Devin is my white Canadian friend of Irish background. The Irish background is questionable because he told me his great-great-grandfather was Irish, and I tease him every time, telling him that you're not Irish, you're Canadian. But through my friendship with him, I've learned a lot. I learned what it's like to be a white male Canadian with a very foreign Asian Irish background. And our friendship has influenced my perspectives and the way I look at life. His perspective of life was different than mine, so I was able to gain a lot of value through our friendship. Although I'm here today, I'm not here today to speak on how harsh it was to make friends at the start of my life here in Canada. Neither am I here to speak on my friendship with Devin. But I'm here to speak on the sustainability of intercultural friendships, as I believe they can influence our perspectives and help expand our cultural knowledge. Now, one of the first problems that come with trying to initiate a intercultural friendship are negative stereotypes. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines a stereotype as a standardized mental picture that is held common by members of a group and that represents an oversimplified opinion, a prejudiced attitude, or uncritical judgment. These negative stereotypes occur when all members of a group are categorized as having the same characteristics. These stereotypes can be linked to any type of cultural aspect regarding religion, gender, race, or age. An example of a negative stereotype could be like, people from country A are superficial. People from country B are loud and flamboyant. These negative stereotypes, they fortify a barrier. They help place a barrier in front of us that keeps us from perhaps starting a friendship that could add a lot of value to our lives. Now, the second problem is the debate between individualism and collectivism, a term that I have recently learned in my intercultural communication class. And in individualistic cultures are those that stress the needs of the individual instead of the needs of the group. And social behavior tends to be dictated by the attitudes and preference of the individual. Cultures such as in North America and a lot of cultures in Europe are individualistic. The other strand, collectivism. Collectivist culture emphasizes the needs and goals of group over the needs and desires of everyone. In countries like this, the priorities and desires and lessons learned from a group are the ones that shape our cultural identity. Countries in Latin America and some countries in Asia form part of this collectivist culture. Now, what is the problem when these two collide? The issue relies upon both of the strands facing its positives and its negatives. For example, as I mentioned before, individualistic culture focuses on me only in my personal interest, whereas collectivist culture focuses on the group, on your community, and how it influences your cultural identity. Now, imagine this. Let me put it as an example. A person that grows up in an individualistic culture will have a hard time or tough time understanding why a person in a collectivist culture places the influence of a group instead of their own needs. Whereas a person that grows in a collectivist culture will maybe find it offensive that an individualistic person, or a person that grew up in an individualistic culture, puts their priority, that grows up in an individualistic culture, will have a hard time or tough time understanding why a person in a collectivist culture places the influence of a group instead of their own needs. Whereas a person that grows in a collectivist culture will maybe find it offensive that an individualistic person, or a person that grew up in an individualistic culture, puts their priorities in front of the ones of their community and group. Now, the effect. The effect of a lack of intercultural communication in our life, and intercultural friendships in our lives. The first one is decrease in cultural awareness. I believe this one is one of the most key and crucial ones, especially in a country like Canada that is so diverse. And a lack of cultural awareness can lead to miscommunication, embarrassment, offense within the host culture, and potentially a failed friendship. A friendship that could have added a lot of value to our lives. And the second effect deals with limiting our perspectives. A lack of intercultural friendships makes us only look at the world a certain way. When we engage with people that grew up in different environments and different cultures, our perspectives can expand. They can be questioned, and it perhaps be influenced from one another, not just yours, but both sides. So, now that I've spoken to you about the problem and concerns that come whenever you're trying to initiate an intercultural friendship, and the effect of a lack of an intercultural friendship, I'd like to offer you guys with a solution. 3 solutions. The first one is to ignore negative stereotypes. Pat Stone Mental Health made an article in 2017 that suggests 7 important things that are to be done to reduce stereotyping and discrimination in relationships. The first one is to know the facts. The second deals with being aware of your attitudes and behaviors. The third one deals with choosing your words carefully. 4th, to educate others. 5th, to focus on the positive. 6th is to support people, and 7th is to include everyone. For an intercultural friendship to work, there has to be a common agreement. A common agreement that we're both different, we're not the same. And it's okay. Our similarities should not be a problem in our friendship. There should be what makes it stronger and what makes it valuable for the both of us. Being open-minded by realizing similarities and celebrating differences instead of having a detriment to our friendships helps looking past cultural stereotypes and helps initiate an intercultural friendship. The second solution is by learning to embrace the differences in culture to fortify the bond you have within your friendship. While being in an intercultural friendship, both ends are likely to have different thoughts about what is right or about what is wrong. Both sides will have different ideals on topics, such as family, money, religion, and freedom. But realizing the differences in ideals does not have to be negative. It does not have to kill the friendship or harm it. Instead, it can make the friendship strong and concrete. The last solution is learning to question our perspectives by comparing them to the ones of our friends. When we do this, it influences our beliefs. Looking at a different set of values and comparing them to your own potentially influence who you are. They potentially influence your cultural identity by merging what you already know and merging what your friend believes in. So, In summary, now that I have provided you all with the problems and concerns that arise when trying to initiate an intercultural friendship, and I provided you with the effects of a lack of intercultural friendships and some solutions, I'd like you guys to give it a try. I encourage you to give it a try, as I believe that the sustainability of intercultural friendships can benefit your perspectives and can add to your cultural knowledge. And maybe, if you include it into your life one day, your friendship might be able to go from this to this. Thank you.